If you stand in the foothills of Mount Damavand, you might notice the thick, sulfuric steam rising from its volcanic vents. For centuries, local legends have claimed that this smoke is actually the labored breath of a chained monster struggling deep within the limestone caverns. That prisoner is Zahhak, the Serpent King. Before he became a literal monster in the Persian national epic, the Shahnameh, he was a human prince whose life serves as a map of how personal ambition can eventually consume a ruler's humanity. Long before Zahhak took the throne, the world experienced a golden age under King Jamshid. For 700 years, humanity enjoyed immense prosperity. Disease, drought, and death were entirely absent from the land. But centuries of success bred intense pride. Jamshid gathered the world's leaders and declared himself the creator of the universe. In that moment of hubris, his far, the divine glory that validated his rule, departed from him in the form of a bird. The light faded, leaving a spiritual vacuum in the kingdom. Tyrants like Zahhak do not emerge in isolation. They capitalize on the instability, the restlessness, and the loss of purpose left behind by failing predecessors. In the neighboring Arab realm lived a pious king named Mirdas. He had a son, Zahhak, who was handsome and impulsive, but lacked a foundation of love. This made the young prince a target for Ahriman, the spirit of darkness. Appearing as a charismatic sage named Eblis, the devil whispered into the young man's ear, convincing him that his father's gentle rule was an obstacle to progress. Zahhak's descent began with the betrayal of his own blood. Eblis dug a hidden pit in the garden where King Mirdas prayed every morning. Zahhak stood by in silence and watched his father fall to his death, allowing him to seize the golden crown. Back in Iran, the people were desperate for order. They looked across their borders and welcomed Zahhak as a savior, unaware that they were entrusting their future to a man who had already surrendered his internal sovereignty to the darkness. Once Zahhak was on the throne, Eblis returned, this time disguised as a master chef. At this time, civilization was largely vegetarian. The devil introduced meat into the royal diet, preparing bloody dishes specifically designed to cultivate a predatory temperament in the king. The devil's menu followed a strategic progression. It started with yolks for vigor, transitioned to bird life, then moved to the blood of land-dwelling mammals. The final stage was veal with wine, designed to normalize bloodlust and induce an insatiable predatory hunger in the ruler. Delighted by the feast, Zahhak offered the cook any reward he desired. Eblis asked only to kiss the king's shoulders. As soon as his lips touched the royal flesh, the devil vanished, and 2 writhing black serpents sprouted from the king. Every time Zahhak tried to sever them, they grew back instantly. These serpents represent the parasitic nature of absolute power. Once invited in, they cannot be removed. They become a part of the ruler's physical being and must be constantly satiated. The devil then appeared a 3rd time, disguised as a physician, to provide a horrifying remedy. To prevent the serpents from eating the king's own brain, they had to be fed the brains of 2 young men every day. The weight of this daily sacrifice is found in the word for brain, maghz. In Persian, maghz also signifies the core or the center of being. By feeding the serpents the maghz of the youth, Zahhak was methodically extracting the intellectual and spiritual core of his nation to keep his own demons at bay. The state was literalizing the destruction of its own potential. This system sustained Zahhak's 1,000-year reign, a period described as a time of silence and darkness, where the sun remained hidden and the future of the nation was devoured by its ruler. The turning point came from the anvil. Kaveh the blacksmith was a commoner who had already lost 16 sons to the king's serpents. When summoned to testify to Zahhak's benevolence, he refused. Kaveh tore up the palace documents and raised his leather blacksmith's apron as a banner of revolt, the Derefsh Kaviani. He united the people behind Feridun, a descendant of the old royal line who had been raised in secret in the mountains. Feridun led a popular uprising that stormed Zahhak's palace. In the final confrontation, he struck the tyrant with an ox-headed mace, but rather than dealing a fatal blow, he was commanded by an angel to bind him. The mythology suggests that killing Zahhak would flood the world with the venomous vermin contained in his blood, the scorpions and snakes that replaced his humanity. This implies that the shadow of a tyrant cannot be wiped out with a single strike. Instead, it must be contained through perpetual vigilance and the collective memory of the people. According to Kurdish folklore, the two cooks ordered to prepare the brain stew were secret rebels. Every day, they spared one youth and mixed a sheep's brain into the dish instead, sending the survivors into the Rocky Mountains. Those survivors became the ancestors of the Kurdish people. For them, the story of Zahhak is the foundational narrative of their ethnic identity. This history is celebrated every year during Nowruz. The lighting of mountain bonfires commemorates the fires lit by Kaveh to signal the rebirth of freedom. The legend has localized across the entire cultural sphere. Sites like the red clay fortress of Shar-e-Zohak in Afghanistan demonstrate how this story is woven into the geography of the land itself. The story ends back at Mount Damavand, where the wind still howls through the rocky, volcanic vents. It serves as a haunting reminder that the serpents of tyranny are never truly dead, only waiting for society to lower its guard.